Hey YouTube, this is PokéCastXVll here, and today we have received some exciting news in that the full BREAKpoint set list has finally been revealed to us, so I figured it only makes sense to do a review of the set. Keep in mind that all the scans used are courtesy of PokeBeach, so if you'd like to check out the full list for yourself or any cards that I've missed out during the review, the link is in the description box below. The other thing to keep in mind are that all the cards are in Japanese, however, I've also included the translations of those cards. With all that said, let's get straight into it. Starting with the grass type Pokemon, we have Meganium. Meganium has an ability called Overgrow, which when it has 50 HP or less, its attacks then deal an additional 70 damage. Its attack for 2 grass and a Colorless called Green Force deals 50 damage and heals whatever damage you inflicted on the defending Pokemon. Normally this would be quite a bad stage 2 card, but with Forest of Giant Plants gives it some viable out to being usable, but even then, I don't think at this stage of the format is going to be seeing much play. Moving on, and probably my favourite grass type of the set, we have Lilligant. Lilligant's second attack is mediocre at best, but its first is actually quite interesting. For a single grass energy, it deals 20 damage, and if your opponent tries to attach an energy to the defending Pokemon the following turn, it automatically puts them to sleep. Keeping in mind with cards like Vileplume in play, this not only prevents them from attacking, but also limits their options of getting out of the situation, as they won't be able to use cards like Switch. You could also pair Lilligant with Ariados from Ancient Origins for the poison effect, as it doesn't affect your grass type Pokemon and gradually helps you accumulate damage. Certainly one card to look out for in the upcoming format. And finally, for the grass types, we have Durant. This Durant is vaguely similar to the one that was released way back in Noble Victories, as it aims to deck out your opponent. However, this Durant is a grass type. Its first attack for a single grass deals 10 damage and discards the top card of your opponent's deck. Its second attack, however, Grind Down, deals no damage, but discards the top 4 cards of your opponent's deck if this Pokemon has any damage counters on it. Durant has a really low 70 HP, so it's going to be really tough for it to take damage while staying alive. The best option to utilize this attack is to probably run something like Rainbow Energy, in where it provides you with the energy to attack, but also deals 1 damage in the process. And with that concludes the grass type Pokemon. Moving on to the fire type Pokemon, there aren't really too many that take my interest. There is an Arcanine and Camerupt, although I don't really see them becoming viable at the moment. The one card that does pique my interest is Emboar EX, which has a slight resemblance to Charizard EX from Flashfire, already in the current format. Emboar, however, does have a slightly different attack, in where its first attack for a Colorless and a Fire deals 20 damage times the number of heads that you're able to hit. Definitely quite risky, but its second attack is what makes Emboar playable. For 2 Fire and a Colorless, it deals 150, and then you discard 2 energy from Emboar. Naturally, this looks like a lot to bump up all at once. However, with Blacksmith in the format, it helps you fuel for its attack a lot more efficiently, much like Charizard. Keep in mind that Emboar also has a 3 retreat cost, but other than that, will certainly be one to look out for. Next up, we have the water type Pokemon, and there are some very interesting cards to say the least. First up, we have Golduck, which for 1 water deals 20 damage and then discards a special energy from the defending Pokemon. However, it's Golduck's break form which catches my interest, as its ability, Hypertrans, states that you can move a basic energy from one of your Pokemon to another as often as you like during your turn. This has a lot of resemblance to Aromatisse in the Fairy Engine, however, Golduck is splashable in any deck, which makes it really unique. Definitely a card that I'm sure will see competitive play in some form or another. Next up is Slowking, which has a really unique ability called King's Inspiration. King's Inspiration allows you to flip a coin, and if heads, moves an energy attached to the defending Pokemon to one of your opponent's benched Pokemon. Keeping in mind that a lot of people run cards specifically for their abilities and can often be dead weight after, Hooper EX being a prime example. When paired with disruption cards like Crushing Hammer and Team Flare Grunt, Slowking is a card that I really like a lot from this set. My only concern is that it is a stage 2 Pokemon, so will that hinder its chances of being playable? We'll have to wait and find out. The next card is our first Water EX from the set, which is Gyarados EX. Gyarados has a solid 180 HP, weak to lightning, and has a retreat cost of 4. Its first attack allows you to flip a coin until you get tails, and for each heads, allows you to search your deck for 1 water energy and attach it to Gyarados. Its second attack for 2 water and 2 colorless deals 130 damage, and then 10 to all of your benched Pokemon. However, it's predominantly the next card, Mega Gyarados, that you're going to be using it for. By Mega Evolving, you bump up your HP to 240, your retreat cost goes down to 2, and also gains a new attack in Blast Geyser, which for 4 colorless energy deals 120 base damage. You also have the added effect that allows you to do 20 more damage for each energy attached to Mega Gyarados, although you have to discard the top 2 cards of your deck in the process. It's a card that I like a lot, but I'm not sure at present if it's going to be fast enough to cope with the current metagame. However, it's certainly one that I'm going to be keeping an eye out for though. Next, and also worth an honourable mention, is Suicune. Suicune's Wind Protection ability prevents all of the effects of the attacks to your Pokemon when Suicune is in the active spot, although that does not prevent the damage from being done. If status conditions become popular, then it's definitely a card I think will see more play. Next and first of our 2 EXs we're going to be looking at is Palkia EX. Standing at a decent 180 HP, its first attack deals 40 damage and allows you to search your deck for 2 water energy and attach them to one of your benched Pokemon. It does require 2 water energy, which begs the question, is it going to be too slow for the format to use? Its second attack though, Pearl Hurricane, deals 120 damage for 4 water energy and also does a 30 snipe. 120 damage combined with a muscle band allows you to hit 140, and then with the 30 snipe gets you to 170. Again, my only concern is that it does need some way to get it powered up quicker, otherwise it's going to be too slow for the format. However, this could fare much better in Expanded, where you have something like Blastoise for its ability Deluge. The next EX we're going to be looking at of the water types is Manaphy EX. Manaphy has an extremely low 120 HP, although, like cards such as Shaman EX, it's predominantly used for its ability. Its ability Aqua Cube gives any Pokemon with a water energy on it free retreat. This is like an exact replica of Dark Cloak from Darkrai EX, although utilizing water energy instead of darkness, a card that I definitely think will see a lot of play. Finally, to conclude the water Pokemon, we have Greninja. It is a stage 2, meaning it'll be harder to get into play, however, its first attack is quite interesting. Shadow Slip for a single colorless energy shuts off all abilities until the end of your opponent's next turn. Gecko Slash for a single water energy deals 60 damage, 20 more if you return an attached water energy from your Greninja to your hand, although it is its break form that interests me most. Giant Water Shuriken is a very similar effect from the one that was released in the X and Y base set, although with a minor difference. This ability allows you to put 6 damage counters on instead of 3. It's certainly a very deadly ability to have, but being a stage 2 might hinder its chances from seeing more play. A possible solution is going down the Archie's route, but even then, we'll have to wait and see if it appears more competitively or not. On to the lightning types, and even though there is a Luxray break, the only Pokemon that I see somewhat half decent is Zebstrika with the ability Zebra Zone. It prevents the effects on the defending Pokemon from your attacking lightning types. Mega Manectric attacking a Giratina EX could be a good example. Unfortunately, that's it for the lightning types, as there aren't too many worth mentioning. Moving on to the psychic types, first up is Hypno with a slightly unusual name for an ability. Goodnight Baby puts both of your active Pokemon and the defending Pokemon asleep. This certainly has Disruption written all over it, and I'm sure we'll see it paired with something like Vileplume or Seismitoad EX. Next up, we have Espeon EX, which has a pretty good 170 HP and 2 attacks. The second attack seems half decent, but it's the first attack that catches my interest. The first attack states for a single colorless energy, you can devolve each of your opponent's higher stage Pokemon and put them into your hand. When you keep in mind that players are choosing to manually go through the stages, especially with Forest of Giant Plants, rather than use Rare Candy, it's really unsure to me whether this card will be that useful, but nonetheless is certainly one to watch out for if you're playing Evolutions. Up next, and probably one of the most hyped cards to return, is Garbodor. This is an exact reprint and even has the same name of the ability Garbotoxin. Garbotoxin shuts down all abilities in play when a tool is attached to it. This is one card that's dominated previous formats, and I expect it will do so again. The next card on the list is Trevenant. This has a relatively decent ability in that when it's your active Pokemon, your opponent's basic Pokemon cost 1 colorless energy more. Perhaps this could see some play with Headringer, however it does have a break form in where for a psychic and a colorless places 3 damage counters on all of your opponent's Pokemon. This could be better paired with Trevenant that has the item lock ability and would certainly benefit from some kind of damage remover, perhaps Dusknoir in Expanded. As for the fighting type, the only fighting type we'll be reviewing is Garchomp. Garchomp has an interesting attack that reminds me a lot of the Plasma Thunderous. Assault Turbo for 1 fighting deals 60 damage, and then you can choose an energy from your discard pile and attach it to one of your Pokemon. Its second attack for 2 fighting deals 80 and 80 more if the defending Pokemon is an EX. With a Muscle Band that gets you up to 180, knocking out most EXs in the format. Naturally, a stage 2 is always going to be tough to get into play, however, Maxis might be a good alternative to speeding up the process. Up next, we have the Dark types, and the first up is Shiftry. Shiftry has always been a controversial Pokemon, and this is no different. Its first attack for a Dark and a Colorless allows you to flip 3 coins, and for every heads, look at your opponent's hand and discard a card. This could be paired with cards like the new Delinquent and even Red card to put your opponent down to 0 cards. Certainly one card I'm intrigued to see in the format. Next and finally for the Dark types, we have the new Darkrai EX standing at 180 HP with 2 attacks. Dark Pulse for a Colorless deals 20 damage plus 20 more for each Dark energy you have in play. Its second attack, Dark Head for a Dark and 2 Colorless, deals 80 damage plus 80 more if the defending Pokemon is asleep. I can't see Darkrai being the focal point of a deck, but I can certainly see where it could be useful. Moving on to the Metal Pokemon, we have Scizor EX. Scizor has 170 HP and 2 attacks. The first for a single Metal deals 20 damage and reduces damage from the attacks the following turn by 20 from your opponent's Pokemon, while the second attack for 2 Metal deals 50 damage with an additional 60 if it was promoted from your bench that turn. However, like Gyarados, is predominantly used for its Mega Evolution. Mega Scizor has 220 HP and has an attack for 2 Metal which deals 120 damage. It also has the added effect to discard either a Stadium card in play or a special energy on the defending Pokemon. It's a card that I like a lot and has great synergy with Bronzong already in the format, certainly one to keep an eye out for. For the fairies, we only have one fairy worth looking at, and it comes to us in Togekiss EX. At 170 HP for 1 fairy energy, Wind Power for 20 damage allows you to attach an energy card from your hand to one of your Pokemon. However, Hurricane Wind for a fairy and 3 Colorless deals 50 damage times the number of heads you're able to flip with 4 coins. Even though this can max out at 200 damage, it's very risky to say the least, which is why I don't think that it will see much competitive play. Passing by the Dragon types, as there's not really too much to look at, we have the normal types or the Colorless if you like. First up is Raticate, which has an interesting ability in that antibodies prevents it from being hurt by special conditions, helping it stay alive longer. However, it's Raticate's break form that takes my interest. For 2 Colorless, it puts the remaining HP on the opponent's Pokemon down to 10. When you consider pairing that with cards like Ariados, you can put a Mega Pokemon to 10 HP and then slowly killing it off with poison, not affecting yourself in the process because you have antibodies. Moving on, we have a very interesting Ho-Oh EX. This rainbow Pokemon has an ability called Cleansing Flame, which when having a fire energy attached to it, heals off 50 damage. For a Grass, Water and a Lightning, it deals 130 damage with a 30 snipe, which is actually pretty decent. However, standing at 180 HP is certainly a bulky Pokemon to say the least, although my major concern is that its energy typings are going to be difficult to play around. And with all that concludes the Pokemon that we're going to be looking at, so let's move on to the trainers. First up is a stadium called All Night Party. The text of the card reads that you may remove the sleep special condition from your Pokemon, and if you do, heal 30 damage from that Pokemon. If sleep conditions become more popular, then it's definitely a card I think we'll see more play. Next we have Burst Balloon, which kind of reminds me of Rock Guard. When attached to a Pokemon, the defending Pokemon then takes 6 damage counters when attacking and dealing damage. However, it is discarded at the end of your opponent's turn. It'll certainly be interesting to see if this makes an appearance in the current metagame, however at present I feel the setback of being discarded really hurts it a lot. Next, and probably my favourite card from the set, is Delinquent. Delinquent states that you may discard a stadium in play, and if you do, your opponent then chooses 3 cards from his or her hand and then discards them. If your opponent only has 3 or less cards in their hand anyway, it can effectively put them down to nothing and limiting their chances of drawing into anything half decent. Definitely the card I'm looking forward to the most. Moving on, we have Fighting Fury Belt. This tool, when attached to a basic Pokemon, bumps up your HP by 40 and also deals 10 more damage in the process. When you think that basic EX Pokemon usually range between 170 and 180 HP anyway, it's going to bump that up to an incredible 210 and 220 HP, making them the equivalent of a Mega Pokemon. Next we have Max Elixir. This card allows you to look at the top 6 cards of your deck and choose a basic energy you find in there and attach it to one of your basic benched Pokemon. This gives cards like Palkia EX, who require 2 water to attack, more viability, and for that reason I'm sure will be played in the upcoming format. Coming back to us from the expanded format, we have the reprint of Max Potion. This item card allows you to heal all damage from a Pokemon, however you then discard all the energy attached to that Pokemon. With cards like Golduck and Aromatisse who can maneuver the energy in the format, it'll certainly make an impact on the format in one way or another. We also have a new supporter card in Misty's Determination. Because it is a Misty's card, players will naturally be more excited, however, it's not all that great at present. It allows you to search the top 8 cards of your deck and choose one card to then put it into your hand. Given that it certainly does have its uses, there are a lot of better options in the format already, already, I feel. A quick mention is that both Gyarados and Caesar have spirit links, which makes them much more playable. However, moving on, we have an interesting card called Puzzle of Time. The card states that you can play 2 at the same time. If you play 1, however, you can look at the top 3 cards of your deck and rearrange them however you please. If you play 2, you can choose 2 cards in your discard pile, show them to your opponent, and then put them into your hand. The final stadium we have for this set is Reverse Valley. A bit like Parallel City, you can choose which way you want to place the card. If placed on the blue side, your metal Pokemon will take 10 damage less from attacks. However, if placed on the red side, your darkness type Pokemon do 10 more damage when attacking. Certainly a card I'm sure will intrigue a lot of players. And finally, we have Splash Energy. This special energy card provides any water type Pokemon with a water type energy, and if knocked out, returns all the cards to your hand. Very interesting, but will the fact that it's a special energy make it more susceptible from cards like Xerosic and Enhanced Hammer? We'll have to wait and find out. And so there you pretty much have it. That is my BREAKpoint set review all concluded for you. Since editing this video, there have been some scans online, some English scans if you would like to check that out. Or alternatively, you can also check out the cards that I missed in the review, as well as the full arts and secret rares of the set. Again, the link is in the description box below. Once again, thank you very much for watching, and if you would like to check out more Pokemon related content, I'll put some annotations at the end of this video, as well as a subscribe button that you can hit if you would like to keep updated with future uploads. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you all soon.